I'm sure that every one of you in high school have at least heard about the Great Depression, but do you know the main reasons why it started and what caused it? My name is Devin Shaner, and I'd like to tell you more detail on how and why the Great Depression happened, the people and the other nations it affected, and also how America pulled through. To start off a little bit before, welcome to the Roaring Twenties. Prices were on the rise, stocks were up, businesses were hiring, and more people were working than ever. Between 1920 and the summer of 1929, our nation's wealth had more than doubled. At the end of this decade, March 4th, 1929 to be exact, our 31st president, Herbert Hoover, took office. He was a good choice for president, although heavily criticized for his hands-off approach when dealing with society and government. Less than 8 months in to his presidency, the infamous day of Black Thursday and Black Tuesday had happened. Many of us know of Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, as the day that the stock market crashed. But did you know that it actually started 5 days before? The day dubbed Black Thursday, October 24th, was the day that over 6 million stocks had been sold, and it started the bubble burst. On Black Tuesday, an additional 12 million stocks were sold, which started the downfall of the stock market. Once the stock market crash of 1929 was in full downward spiral, the devastating effects on its people and its nations were known. Businesses began to panic. In order to save themselves, they laid off a large percentage of their workers in order to cut costs and survive. In 1931, 6 million people were laid off. 1 year later, in 1932, a staggering 15 million people were unemployed looking for work. That's over 20% of the U.S. population at that time, which means 1 in 5 people were looking for work. Being that there was no help from the government, a hands-off approach, Hoover and his presidential cabinet thought that things would work itself out, so he tried to get as little involved as possible. Being that there were no jobs, infrastructure such as buildings, roads, and bridges began to fail over the next few years. This also sparked banks panicking across the states. In 4 waves over the next 3 years, thousands of banks began to close. Of the banks that were opened in 1930, by the end of 1933, over 1/5 of them had closed their doors for good. This economic turmoil had harmed other countries too. Being that our imports and exports were slow, other countries that relied on our goods were harmed in the process. Great Britain and most of the European countries were hurt the worst, seeing slow economy as similar to ours. Other countries like Japan and Latin America had a mild downfall, but nothing like we did. It's hard to say exactly how many countries were affected, but it's estimated at least 30 countries had some similar effects to us. In 1933, America's hero came to power. March 4th, 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had become president. 2 days after taking office, he instituted a national bank holiday to assess all the banks that were left. Any that were deemed unfit were closed immediately, and the rest were vital to the success of the economy in the future. The biggest impact FDR had was the New Deal in 1933, which was a set of international programs to help us pull through. It focused on anything from businesses to agriculture. Programs created more jobs and also invested millions of dollars into public works, such as hospitals, schools, roads, and bridges. This in turn created many jobs, got people back to work, and the economy starting to spend money again. Over the next few years, from 1933 to 1939, the economy began to slowly turn around. In 1939, World War II had started across the ocean. This was a major impact on our steel because we needed to produce items such as guns, which created more jobs in factories up and coming. This also was a major impact on our steel mills, on our coal mines, because you need coal in order to make the fires to make the steel. Although we did not get involved till 1941, between 1939 and 1941, the economy began to turn around and finally climbed out, officially ending the Great Depression era in 1939. In conclusion, even though there is a blemish on the Americans' history as bad as this, it is very vital and necessary one for us to move forward as a nation. As Edward Burke, a famous Brit politician, once said, "Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it."